The sweat and expensive perfume mingled in the stuffy air, so thick it was hard to breathe. Silk and brocade scratched at feverish skin. 200 pairs of eyes, like vultures, watched every twitch. This is not a torture scene. It is the birth of a royal heir, and the queen could not even grimace. Marie Antoinette, the last queen of France, was at the height of her beauty and power. But on that day, she was just a woman, trapped in a gilded cage, forced to turn the most intimate and vulnerable moment of her life into a repulsive spectacle. Why subject a queen to this? It wasn't sadism, it was a rule of the state, born from a paranoia so deep it was carved into the laws of the kingdom, a rule that almost killed her, and that monarchy apologists have tried to downplay for centuries. But the private diaries of her ladies-in-waiting, hidden for generations, tell the terrifying truth of what really happened in that room. Get ready. This story goes beyond the scandals of Versailles. It's a tale of power, fear, and the brutality behind the royal veil. Before the terror, there was beauty. Before the hysteria, elegance. Marie Antoinette arrived in France like a mirage. At 14, she was a porcelain princess, a symbol of the alliance between Austria and France, meant to seal the peace between two rival nations. In Versailles, she was met with adoration. Her dresses were copied all over Europe. Her hairstyles set the trends. She was the embodiment of luxury, a goddess in a garden of delights. But this perfection was a trap. Every smile was analyzed, every word weighed, and there was one expectation that hung over her like a death sentence: produce an heir to the French throne. The years passed. 1, 2, 5, 7, and the royal cradle remained empty. The whispers began. She was the Austrian, a foreigner, an intruder. Anonymous pamphlets accused her of infertility, of adultery, of treason. The pressure was unbearable. In relentless letters, her own mother, Empress Maria Theresa, begged her, "Send me an heir. Your worth depends on it." For Marie Antoinette, motherhood was not a choice, but a duty, and failure meant ruin. When finally, in 1778, the pregnancy was announced, France exploded with joy. But for Marie Antoinette, the joy was tinged with terror. Because she knew her body did not belong to her. The birth of her child would not be a private event, but a grotesque, public spectacle. It was the fault of Louis XIV, the Sun King. Haunted by the fear of an illegitimate bloodline, he decreed that the royal birth had to be witnessed by dozens, even hundreds of people. The goal? To ensure that the royal baby was not swapped, that the bloodline remained pure. Picture the scene. Ministers, nobles, diplomats, servants, and gawkers from all over Paris squeezed into a room, all eager to witness the most intimate moment of a woman's life. There was no privacy, no dignity. The queen was an animal on display, her pain and vulnerability exposed to public scrutiny. A stream of curious people filled the chamber in such a way that you would think the crowd would suffocate her. The air became so foul that 2 chimneys were lit, but it was no use. And there was no room for weakness. A queen could not scream, could not cry. She had to remain serene and untouchable, a marble goddess enduring agony. But on that day, the goddess was about to break. December 19th, 1778, Marie Antoinette went into labor at dawn, and with it, the nightmare began. The doors to her chamber were thrown open. The crowd surged in. There weren't dozens, but hundreds. Estimates point to 200 people crammed into the room. The sound wasn't one of celebration, but a low buzz of whispers, coughs, and the rustling of hundreds of silk garments. Men climbed on mahogany chests to get a better view, their dirty shoes scratching the polished wood. The air wasn't just hot, it smelled of unwashed bodies, dusty wigs, and the collective fear emanating from the queen herself. The queen was disturbed by people of all conditions. Anyone who was decently dressed could enter. Marie Antoinette, lying in bed, felt like an insect under a magnifying glass. The contractions hit her in waves, each more excruciating than the last. But she remained stoic, biting her lip to keep from screaming. Hours passed. The heat became unbearable. The air grew thin. And then it happened. Marie Antoinette fainted. It wasn't a delicate swoon. Her body convulsed, her eyes rolled back, and a trickle of sweat and saliva ran from the corner of her lips. The metallic smell of blood filled the air as the surgeon, in a panic, grabbed his lancet. Marie Antoinette was dying before their very eyes. It was the king, Louis XVI, normally passive, who acted with unexpected fury. He burst open the sealed windows, letting the cold air rush into the room. The queen regained consciousness, and with one last effort, she gave birth. A girl. Marie-Thérèse Charlotte, Madame Royale. The crowd erupted in applause. But for Marie Antoinette, there was no relief. The joy was faint, almost non-existent. Because in France, a daughter was not enough. The Salic law forbade women from inheriting the throne. The pressure to produce a male heir remained relentless, and the humiliation of the public birth had stolen something from Marie Antoinette forever. Madame Campan wrote, "The queen came so close to death that she was horrified at the thought of having to go through such a public event again. And she decided she would never do it again." When she became pregnant again, Marie Antoinette did the unthinkable. She refused to repeat the spectacle. For the birth of the Dauphin, Louis Joseph, in 1781, the doors remained closed. The crowd was banned. Only a handful of official witnesses were allowed. She had defied a century of tradition. She had reclaimed her body, her dignity, her humanity. With a single act of silent rebellion, she abolished one of the cruelest practices of the French monarchy. Marie Antoinette's life would end in tragedy. But the story of her first birth reveals a forgotten courage. She wasn't just a frivolous queen. She was a woman who survived the unthinkable. And in doing so, she changed the course of history, one birth at a time.